Dagshai is a quiet cantonment in the Himalayan foothills, but its jail carries a rare shared history of Irish and Indian nationalism. In 1920, the Connaught Rangers Regiment stationed here heard about atrocities committed in Ireland by the British-backed Black and Tans. Many of the soldiers were Irish Catholics. Their anger led to Dagshai mutiny on July 1st. Led by 20-year-old James Daly, the man locked up their British officer and seized the armory. They were fighting for Irish independence thousands of kilometers away from home. A column from nearby Ambala put down the revolt. Daly and leaders were jailed in Dagshai. Mahatma Gandhi, who already admired the Irish struggle, reached Dagshai while launching the non-cooperation movement in the nearby Ambala. He insisted on spending the night inside the jail, close to the mutineers, drawing strength from their defiance. Daly faced a rushed court-martial. On a November morning like this, 105 years ago, Daly was executed at Dagshai on November 2, 1920. His last words to his mother were simple: "It's all for Ireland. I'm not afraid to die." His remains were flown back to Ireland in 1970. Dagshai saw other revolutionaries too. Ghadar activists from Kamaghatha Maru expedition were imprisoned and hanged here. By a strange coincidence, even Nathuram Godse, Gandhi's assassin, was held here overnight in the same jail complex when he was being taken for trial in Shimla. The prison is now a museum where an Irish mutiny, Indian nationalism, and the early politics of empire converge in one small hilltop jail. As the jail fell out of use, it slipped out of public memory. Its return to relevance began with one man, Anand Kumar Sethi, who made Dagshai his home 2 decades ago. He sifted through records, burial registers, and regimental archives to rebuild the history of this place and of the soldiers and prisoners who passed through it. The jail, St. Patrick's Church, and the cemeteries were restored using archival material. Today, soldiers of Indian Army guide visitors through the same cells that once held Ghadar revolutionaries and Boer detainees. Sethi's work revived more than the story of James Daly. It restored the larger history of Dagshai. The name itself traces to Dagshai Shahi, a Mughal practice of branding hardened offenders. The East India Company acquired the area in 1847 from Maharaja Bhupinder Singh of Patiala, and the jail was constructed in 1849. Inside, teak floors still creak, narrow cells shut out daylight. The punishment cells allow only standing room. Another cell marked P&T makes its intent unmistakable. It stands for punishment and torture. The restored museum draws these fragments into a coherent record. It keeps alive a past shaped by rebellion, punishment, and shifting power of an empire.
So we are standing in front of the gate, which leads to the Dagshai military jail. As you will see on top, it says number 1 old detachment line. Now, this cantonment, this is Dagshai cantonment, much like some other cantonments of the area, were required to be made because the then British Indian Army was headquartered in Kolkata, part of it in the presidency of Madras, part of it presidency of Bombay. But the real problems were in the north. So you had number 1, the issues with Afghanistan. They had the 3 Afghan wars. You also they had a problem with the Sikhs, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, etc. But one big problem which people don't realize, it's not in our history books, was the fact that the area that we are in and all around here in Himachal for many years was under the control of the Nepalese Gorkhas, the famous army of Amar Singh Thapa, who had come defeated in 5 different battles, the British Indian Army, and killed their most General Gillespie. So they decided to make these cantonments in the hills because it would be cool, much like home in, say, Scotland, and the requirement was it should be above mosquito line. So there's some very unique things in this building. It is depicting what in those days used to be called bread and water punishment. This is for indiscipline or doing bad things, and you could get this punishment by the hour, by the day, or by up to a week. So the prisoner had to stand between these two doors, and all he got was bread and water, no other food, nothing. Only in the evening, when all these prisoners would be allowed to go outside for fresh air. What happened in Dagshai, what happened to the Connaught Rangers is the central part of our history, not only of Dagshai, but of the freedom movements of one nation first, that is Ireland, and then the other nation, India, which actually more or less copied the Irish freedom movement. The Connaught Rangers is this regiment of Irish troopers, but English officers who mutinied in 1920. The Irish troopers mutinied against their English officers, and they grabbed hold of the officers, put them in detention, grabbed the armory, etc. But anyway, a relieving column came from Ambala, put the mutiny down. The leaders of, or the alleged leaders of the mutiny were got hold of, particularly the one man who they said was the actual leader, a fellow called James Daly, an Irish soldier. And in a very quick court-martial held by the then general in Ambala, a General Lawford, which was held outside this jail, James Daly was sentenced to death by firing squad, and he was shot. This is the official certificate of death sent to James Daly's mother, informing her that your son has been shot by firing squad following a court-martial. As they say in Irish history, the Dagshai mutiny happened in 1920. So on the one hand, the relieving force came from Ambala. So of course people in Ambala knew that something had happened. Incredibly enough, as we understand, at that time Mahatma Gandhi happened to also be in Ambala. And he was launching the non-cooperation movement from Ambala. He got to hear of what the Irish boys had done. Not knowing where Dagshai was, he asked, "Where is this?" And he was shown from Ambala in those days, was much clearer, no pollution. The hills across right there. And he says, "I want to go and meet the Irish boys." Why? Because he had a very personal friend, a gentleman called Eamon de Valera. And Eamon de Valera, as we know in history, was father of the Irish nation. He said, "I want to go talk to these Irish boys. What has happened? Why have they taken such drastic action?" And Gandhiji came here, we believe, or so the records show, he was offered accommodation outside. He says, "No, I want to be with the Irish boys." So if you will come with me, we have only one so-called VIP cell. It's actually a set of 2 rooms, and records show that this is the gentleman, Mahatma Gandhi, who was kept here as a guest. Remember, not as a prisoner, but as a guest. So we'll come inside. VIP cell in the sense, 2-room suite, fireplace. Clearly they must have had shelves to keep clothes. One exit door, so we are told, or so we believe. Gandhiji stayed here. This desk obviously was not in the cell. This is again rescued 19th century British Army furniture. And what you see, the chakra is made by the local school, Army public school student. And he would have walked up and down and talked to James Daly and the others, and why. And it seems that Gandhiji's whole concept of the freedom movement changed after talking to the Irish. And we believe that two nations got their independence from what happened here in Dagshai, and particularly the centrality of the Dagshai military jail. First, late in 1920, is the independence of Ireland, and from the same colonial ruler, incidentally, and then India, which followed suit. Interesting, if you will notice, both countries have the Tiranga, the tricolor flag, and they are the same colors. It is because history tells us how much the Indian and Irish movements for freedom were very similar, is people of our country must know of this link. I mean, I asked students, one very senior political figure in this country rose to the very top, was educated in Ireland. Do you know his name? No. Our former president, V.V. Giri, has been educated in Ireland. They don't talk about it. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, influenced by the Irish independence movement. In fact, the first the movements of independence that Netaji, after resigning from the ICS, that he did was near Agartala, and he called the entity the Indian Revolutionary Army, based like the IRA, which is the Irish Revolutionary Army. So Ireland is extremely important for India, and so is Dagshai. This is possibly our most famous cell. Records that we have seen at the British records in the British Library in London seem to indicate that the last occupant of this jail, after which it was closed down, was this gentleman, and he was put in this cell.
Travelers heading into the hills often choose nearby Kasauli and pass Dagshai without pause. Those who stop find a place that asks for attention rather than leisure. Its quiet ridge and restored jail reveals a history that once unfolded under the strict rule and military authority. Anyone who walks these corridors understands what courage looked like in an earlier era, when decisions were made under the shadow of the gun and stories survived only because someone chose to remember them.